Assalamu alaikum students, this is Muhammmad Fareed, lec- lecturer of economics from Government Superior Commerce College, Shah Faisal Colony. Let us start with the first concept, needs. I hope you must have heard this term. What does need in economics mean? In economics we define needs as all those things which are essential for our survival or living. The five basic needs are food, clothing, water, shelter, and protection. We call these five needs as universal needs. The reason is that wherever the individual is living in the world, all those individuals have these similar needs. So that is why we call them universal needs. Wants. Wants are human wants. All the desires and motives of humans are known as human wants in economics, and the wants that can be satisfied with goods and services of any kind are economic wants. Wants have certain characteristics in them, so let us discuss them one by one. The first one, you can see that the wants are unlimited or infinite. What does it mean? It means that a human is never truly satisfied, and also his wants are endless. So we may satisfy some of our wants, but they always reoccur. So that is why we say that the wants are unlimited or infinite. Different wants have varying degrees of intensity. It means that some of our wants are extremely urgent, whereas some are less intense. The next characteristic is human wants tend to be competitive. What does it mean? It means that we have limited resources, we all know that, and it is obvious that we cannot fulfill all of our wants with those limited resources. Okay, so those wants compete with each other, and the most urgent want can be satisfied. So that's why we say that human wants tend to be competitive. Next characteristic is wants can be complementary as well. Here on one side we have seen that the wants can be competitive, and on the other side we are saying that wants can be complementary as well. Yes, it's true. So let me give you one example. Let's suppose if one individual has bought a car, so it means to run or drive that car, that individual would need or demand petrol as well. So the wants would become complementary, the car and petrol. Those two wants become complementary for that individual. Another characteristic is wants are constantly changing. What does it mean? It means that the wants of any person will constantly be changing according to the time, place, and situation of that person. And you know that all of you know that nowadays we are facing with the problem of coronavirus, and you have seen that the wants of the people has also changed because of the time, place, and situation they are in. So the wants have changed. Another important characteristics of the want is that many of the wants are habit forming. Resources. This is also a very important term which will be frequently used in economics. How do we define resources in economics? We say that all those things which are needed to produce and provide goods and services are called resources. Resources are basically means or the ways. Resources are finite or limited. Okay, so the problem with the resources is that the resources are limited as compared to the wants we have, which are always unlimited. Okay, another term which we use in economics is goods. What does the goods mean? Goods are basically all those tangible or physical things which fulfills our needs and wants. Like if you bought a motorcycle, so that is a physical or tangible thing. So we use goods to describe these kinds of things which are physical or tangible. Services. What are services? Services are also used to fulfill our needs and wants, but services are intangible or non-physical things We cannot see them, we cannot touch them. Okay. Product is another term. It is basically a collective term which is used to describe both goods and services. Utility. Okay, students, have you ever bothered why do we consume or we use up different kinds of goods and services? Obviously, we consume goods and services to fulfill our needs and wants. And whenever we consume or use up goods and services, what do we get? We get satisfaction. So that satisfaction is called utility in economics. So you can see utility is the satisfaction we derive from the consumption of goods and services. Scarcity. Scarcity basically means the lack of sufficient resources to fulfill the basic needs and wants. And scarcity also means a shortage of resources. Economic problem. Now, what is economic problem? Economic problem arises because of the fact that we have limited resources and unlimited wants. So now the question is how to solve economic problem. Now what happens in our usual life, whenever we face any kind of problem, we try to find out the solution, we try to solve that problem. So if we face economic problem, what do you think, how can we solve that economic problem? The economic problem arises because of the limited resources and unlimited wants. Is it possible that we can convert our limited resources into unlimited resources? Obviously that cannot be possible. On the other side, we have studied about wants, and we have seen the first characteristics about want is that the wants are always unlimited. So is it possible that we can convert our unlimited wants into limited wants? No. So then question is how to solve the economic problem. Economic problem is solved through a process of setting preference. What we do out of our unlimited wants, we try to sort out, we try to set the preference and priority. We try to fulfill those wants which have to be fulfilled immediately. With our limited resources, we try to fulfill those wants which have to be fulfilled immediately, and this is how we solve economic problem. Exchange. An exchange process is simply when an individual or an organization decides to satisfy a need or want by offering some money or goods or services in exchange. It is a common process. You must have bought different kinds of goods and services. So we say that exchange has taken place. Exchange simply means whenever the buyer buys goods and services, in return he makes payment through money. So that process is basically exchange. Production. Production is a process in which inputs are converted into output. It is a very basic meaning. Goods and services are produced to satisfy consumer needs and wants. The production of goods and services is organized by entrepreneurs and firms. And what does a firm do? A firm combines land, labor, capital to make goods and services. And you can see in the diagram as well, the production process is shown. On the left side, the inputs are shown, and in the production process, inputs are the first three factors of production: land, labor, and capital. And on your right side, you can see the output. The output of production process is in the form of goods and services. And what does the entrepreneur do? In this production process, entrepreneurs organize resources and determine what and how to produce. Producers are simply those people and organization who make goods and services. Consumption, consumer, and consumption expenditure. Consumption is basically name of a process in which consumer consumes goods and services to satisfy their needs and wants. Who is a consumer? Consumer is anyone who uses up or consume goods and services to satisfy their own needs and wants. And consumption expenditure is basically the spending of consumer on goods and services to satisfy their needs and wants. So just suppose if you have bought a mobile phone for 30,000 recently, and now you are using that mobile phone, so that process and of using up that mobile phone is basically the consumption. And who is using that mobile phone? You are using that mobile phone, you have bought that mobile phone for your own use, so you would be called consumer. And the 30,000 that you spend to buy that mobile phone is basically your consumption expenditure. Now keep remember one thing, we cannot call the shopkeeper or the seller as a consumer, although they buy goods and services. But why do they buy goods and services? They buy goods and services for the purpose of reselling them. So they are basically the retailers, and we cannot call them a consumer. Free goods. What are free goods? In economics, we define the free goods as all those goods which are available in abundance, which are not scarce, and we do not require resources to produce them, are called free goods. Like the water, we know that 3/4 of the earth is covered with water, so water is a free good. Now keep remember here, I'm not talking about drinking water. Drinking water is not a free good. Why? Because drinking water is not available in abundance, drinking water is scarce, and we require resources to produce drinking water, so that is why we cannot call drinking water as a free good. However, water is a free good. Why? Because we know that the 3/4 of the earth is covered with water. Similarly, the sunlight is a free good, and the wind as well, it is also a free good. Okay, economic goods. Economic goods are totally the opposite of free goods. How we define them? We say those goods which are not available in abundance, which are scarce, and we require resources to produce them, are called economic goods. If you observe carefully, all the goods and services we buy are basically the economic goods. And another way we can say that all those goods which we use in everyday life, they are basically economic goods. Okay, consumer goods. We have discussed the meaning of consumer. Who is the consumer? Consumer is someone who uses up goods and services. So what are consumer goods? Consumer goods are basically all those goods which are used by consumers to satisfy or fulfill their needs and wants. So those goods are consumer goods. Consumer goods can be classified as durable goods and non-durable goods. As the term suggests, durable goods means all those goods which are long lasting. For example, like furniture, AC, refrigerator, car, they are all durable goods. On the other side, non-durable goods are all those goods which are perishable, which may get spoiled quickly. We cannot store them for a longer period of time. Like non-durable goods can be fruits, vegetables. Okay. Consumer services. Just like consumer goods, we as a consumer use different kinds of services. Like we use services of banks, we use transportation services, we use healthcare services. So these we use internet service, mobile phone service, and so on. So all these services are called consumer services. Capital goods. These are machinery, equipment, and tools used by producers to produce consumer goods and services. These are man-made resources. Capital goods are basically the goods which help the producers to produce consumer goods and services. The buying of capital goods is basically an investment for the producer. Why? Because this investment help the producer to earn or generate revenue, to earn money or generate revenue. Public sector. We can divide the economy of a country into public sector and private sector. Public sector is basically that part of an economy in which all the resources or factors of production are owned and controlled by government or state, like Pakistan State Oil, Pakistan Railway, Pakistan Steel, National Bank of Pakistan, similarly PIA. These are all public sector organizations. These are owned and controlled by government. Private sector is basically that part of an economy in which all the resources or factors of production are owned and controlled by private individuals, like the businesses we see all around us. Many of them are owned and controlled by private individuals, so that basically represents the private sector. Factors of production, very important term, but do you know that you already know the meaning of factors of production? Can you guess the term which is used to denote the factors of production? It's resources. All those things which are needed to produce and provide goods and services are called factors of production or resources. Okay, so basically factors of production represents resources. There are 4 factors of production, namely land, labor, capital and enterprise. Land includes all the natural resources which are above and under the surface of the earth. Labor includes the human resources. Capital includes all the man-made resources, and enterprise is basically the risk-taking ability of an owner, or the ability to organize the first 3 factors of production is the enterprise. Okay student, let us see the earnings of these factors of production. On the right side you can see the 4 factors of production: land, labor, capital and enterprise. And on the left side you can see the factor income. The income of land is basically called the rent. The income of labor is wages, and the income of capital is interest, and the income of entrepreneur is basically the profit. This is the recap of all the terms we have discussed in this video. I hope you would find it interesting and helpful, and you would remember the meaning of all these basic terms. Thank you so much.